Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us for a very special experience with JBC. It all started from this idea I had with my good friend Daniel. He's a very creative artist. I really enjoyed working together with him. We did a meditative service before the pandemic, and it was this great light installation in our church. And I was doing improvised electronic music, and I had such a great time doing it that I wanted to swing back to Daniel again, thinking if we could do something similar. But in these pandemic times, I was thinking, well, maybe we can't do a gathering, but maybe we could do some kind of like media experience. And so I reached out to Daniel, and Daniel's been doing some really cool artwork these past couple of years. And so I thought it'd be great for us to join again. So Daniel, thank
Yeah.
you for
Yeah.
joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, that the last time we did it, it was probably one of my favorite things that I've gotten to do as an artist, honestly. And just, yeah, I felt like a really special moment. So I was very excited to get to do it again and have something that would last beyond the one night as well. So yeah, I'm really grateful for the opportunity too. And yeah, it's been awesome to get to uh, be inspired by each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a real energy when we work together
Yeah.
that I always get excited about. Well, to preface a bit, to tell you a bit about my history of where this comes from, the longest night service is also known as like a blue Christmas service in some church circles. And I remember I kind of discovered this tradition later in life, but I remember as a young associate pastor, I had attended this one Methodist church and they had a blue Christmas service. And it was there that I realized like they're really addressing the reality that for some people, Christmas is a really difficult time for them. And we're having all these carols, like everyone's talking about, you know, this joyous season, and it can be very painful and difficult. And so the need to have people understand that God is also speaking to us in our struggles, in our brokenness is really important to me. And I remember after that first Blue Christmas experience, I told myself, if I'm ever pastoring, at a church, I want to make sure that I'm doing that in the future. Like if I have a voice, if I become like a lead pastor, I want to make sure we do that. And that's what we're doing with what we did before and with this, kind of entering to that tradition of acknowledging that Christmas isn't just about people being happy. It's about, God meeting us where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the last thing about this interesting for those watching is that in terms of history, the reason we have Christmas on December 25th is not because actually Christ was born on December 25th, but because it was actually a pagan ritual where they acknowledged like this is literally the darkest day of the year. And from here on in, it's only going to get brighter. And Christians took that tradition and acknowledged that it's Christ who comes into the darkness. And from here, the light begins to shine. And so I think this is what's been really exciting about inviting you into this, Daniel, because you use light all the time in your artwork. And I love how you do that. And I was thinking, approaching you to talk about maybe using some of your interesting like works with light to talk about this idea of like light shining in the darkness, which I think is very appropriate for Christmas. So I thought maybe, do you want to walk us through a bit about your process of how you came up with the concept of all the visuals that we'll see?
I feel like it's hard to really enter into Christmas in a meaningful way if you're not acknowledging the spots, the moments of just brokenness in your own life, in our world, and like that's not just specific for people who it's very obvious. Like I think that those moments are like what hope is actually connected to. So I feel like being aware of the places that we're like yearning for Jesus is like the core of what Christmas is. And like that's what makes hope real, and makes the like Advent season actually meaningful, is acknowledging like we need a savior. We need these places of healing in all of us. So yeah, that's why I think I'm always drawn to this idea of like the light and the darkness. Um, yeah, and so I've been working on um, similar artwork for quite a while, and I would say it's just kind of been a slow evolution, and uh, been doing stuff outside in the last couple of years a lot more, and like wanting to interact with environments, and yeah, um, just seeing, being present to where I'm at a particular place, and just kind of asking the question of like what belongs here, and how would I respond uh, in an interesting way. Um, yeah, so a lot of it has been about presence. Um, but yeah, with the this video that we're about to watch, I would say again, I think it was about these kind of moments of connection and disconnection, and like a lot of backwards and forwards. And I think that's something that we've all experienced in a lot of different ways in the last couple of years. And has been a way, it has been a way for me to kind of process some of that, even in creating it. So I think that that experience is probably there. And I hope that other people can enter in and really use this as a way to just meditate and reflect on the places that are disconnected from what you hope things could be in your life, and like um yeah, just the pain and the reality of needing something more than we currently have. And I think that's been, yeah, really obvious in the last couple of years,
Yeah.
um and just the lack of control we have. So yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate our last service and this service about, I think this format, there's a like a gentleness or a kindness in the way that it's presented. And like I appreciate that you're not like I call like bullying people into like get the message, figure it out. Like this is what I'm trying to tell you. I like that this work is abstract, and that might be difficult for some personalities, but
Mhm.
I think what's really great is that sometimes I go to church and I feel like people are forcing me to sing their songs, like assent to like their propositions, or their messages. But I feel like when we use art at the forefront to talk about these things, um, it's more like a gentle invitation of like, look, I know some of you might be tired, you're not ready to sing right now, but you can come and just experience this, and just take it in and think about it. And I think that's what prayer is, right? Like a lot of what prayer is not so much what we're saying, but kind of acknowledging what's going on in our lives, acknowledging that God is with us and what's around. And I'm really hoping that people could do that as we are in this time. So thank you. Yeah, thanks for I appreciate how we've been doing that in both times. You did these wonderful storyboards, and I thought like it'd be fun for you to walk us through kind of the concept of this and like how you came through with it.
Yeah. um yeah, I've been getting just more interested in the process of making films generally, and wanted to try this tool, and it turned out to be super helpful. So yeah, and it's interesting because I'm typically a pretty go with the flow person, but I was like, I think um, to really articulate clearly what I'm hoping to, even though it's an abstract thing that I'm trying to articulate clearly, it'd be helpful to do some storyboards. So I kind of planned out a few of the shots, and they're really helpful for kind of like framing the flow of things, um, and getting to these kind of critical moments. And then there's enough stuff going on with filming, and especially filming like low light, that there was plenty of opportunity for me to go with the flow with the film that I had, because nothing ever like turns out the way you expect it to, even when you're trying to just record reality. So there's all sorts of creative challenges that you have to interact with. They end up becoming, I think, an interesting part of the process. And yeah, my work is always process oriented, and in the same way that it's like wanting to be present, that kind of theme follows itself through the whole thing, and like different mediums. Even for me, it feels like pretty similar to painting, of like even responding to the footage that I have of like, I thought this shot would work out better than it did, and it's when I see it on my computer, I don't like it, and it's like it needs something more, and thinking like, how can I respond to what I actually have and make it useful. So yeah, I think that's something else that's was part of this process that's really interesting. And yeah, I also like made the light box that's in the film, screwed it together real quick. Yeah, and wired it up and whatnot, and then did some drawing on top of it too. And the language aspect is another kind of thread that's been through my work for different reasons. And yeah, so I'm dyslexic, so language has always been something that's like been kind of a love-hate relationship, and a lot of painful experiences growing up and difficulty with that, and like trying to maybe kind of redeem that as an adult. But yeah, being in an in-between world with that is kind of the best way I've described it. And I think you start to realize that yeah, there's certain things that can and can't be actually described with words. And I think we kind of all have a sense of that, but it's definitely something I thought about quite a bit. And that's why even in the film, I put the title and stuff at the end, because I wanted it to be a purely visual experience, and there to be no interaction with words at all. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought that was the most poignant moment for me, right? For me, if I can identify like the pivotal, like key sequence is that moment where you're writing. And I love it because, you read in the scriptures about, in the beginning was the word, right? But with a capital W. And I think sometimes in our Western society where like we value like intellectualism and stuff, like we think word means like, intellectualism, but it's really, the word is about like the meaning, right? And I love how you're actually writing stuff that what I was thinking was like, it's like a transcendent language, it's not just about information, right? Or syntax or grammar, but it's about communicating, right? And what's really cool about it is like in the darkest places, right? You set up the shot really beautifully with the sequences before, but I kind of saw that triangle as like a sacred holy space where this is where we make our secret prayer language that is greater than words, and it's not confined to just things that are comprehensible. And I wish we had had more spaces for this in the church, because I feel like the churches are very limited in the ways that we can pray and express. It feels like people are like, oh, I can't pray well because like I'm not eloquent of speech, or I can't read this, right? And then it just brings up all these things about like, you're just talking about dyslexia, but with other people with other challenged abilities or struggles, do they have a place at the table, right? And for you to do this kind of just levels it. It's like we all have a language of some kind that we can go to when things get really dark. And I think that was just a really holy, sacred moment in the film that I hope as people are watching it, you can think about, when I feel really dark, like, is there some kind of like prayer language I can give to God? Like, and Romans talks about in groans and words that, that can't be understood, that only the Spirit understands. So I hope that really empower people to do that. And the reason I'm talking at length about this, because this also comes into the music, right? So I actually given you another piece, and you said you really enjoyed it, but then I threw in, I think, another piece after that.
Yeah.
So like, actually, I've been working on this other thing too. I was a little reluctant because it's really long. It's like 12 minutes long. It's very abstract. But how it came about, I can't remember the full details, but I think, if I can remember correctly, I think it was around that time I was just having, I was just in this moment where I was just having a really hard time expressing myself. and I just had all these like sound textures prepared on my computer. And so I just started triggering them, and I just organically started fading in and out different sounds and manipulating stuff. So a lot of that you're hearing in a recording is live in one take. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember I wasn't thinking of how long it should be, but I sat down, I was like, oh, it's 12 minutes. But when I listened back to it, I was like, this feels right. It's very long, but for that genre of music, it just felt really right. And I love it
Mm-hmm.
because how you're describing the way that you work with like video and visuals, you're very
Mm-hmm.
responsive. Well, that's what I love about it. And you're very like what I call like reactive, I guess, like you're like, okay, I did this, and okay, well, let's go here now. Let's go here. And you're just really open. And that's kind of like how I treat a lot of my improvisational music. And so I felt like it fit really beautifully when we did this that service live. And I felt that same kind of synergy when you were doing this video, because for people who are watching, they might not know that um, you were making the video sort of around my music, but it really
Mm-hmm.
feels like I was making the music around your visuals, right? And you can't really
Mm-hmm.
tell. And I think that that's another like kind of beautiful metaphor for prayer, like this cool, like you don't know where it started or ends, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where it just feels like I feel like both of our creative spirits, our energy is kind of like intertwined. And that's always really exciting for me to watch it. And so that's kind of like about the music, but for me that was very satisfying to watch, like the transitions and like um yeah, it just really felt like we commissioned this together. But I made that music like a year ago, or no, maybe longer, than maybe 2 years ago. So it's kind of crazy how you made it feel very fresh and like dynamic together. So I really appreciated that, just personally, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, totally. To make it even more interesting, I would probably made half of the video off the original song you sent,
Oh,
and then I switched halfway through, and then it just plugged right in. So
oh,
even
interesting.
more crazy of a coincidence that it worked so well. And then the
That's
last half
awesome.
just tied together perfectly.
That's great. Um,
Yeah.
I thought maybe, I mean, we've talked at length about it, but did you have any last thoughts that you want to talk about? Like how you said that you wanted to call this paradox. And
Hmm.
I was wondering if maybe you had some last thoughts of like why the name and how that connects to like what you feel Advent is about and this whole project, maybe in closing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, you know, there's a paradox in just light and dark itself, and like these things that are existing next to each other in the video and just in life. And there's a paradox of like, especially trying to hold on to hope when our world is telling us that it's like meaningless or that there's nothing to hope in. Um, those are confusing realities to live in. And like, I think that is part of what God invites us into. Um, yeah, so I think our life is filled with things that don't quite fit where they're supposed to. And like the reality of how do we hold on to those still, or what's worth holding on to still.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. I mean, I feel that's what kind of the whole message of Advent is about, right? Is like God coming into that messy paradox, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes we think like you got to clean everything up, but like I love how God comes in a very dark time of like God's people's history, um, in a manger, and just really bad situations, like awkward situations. Like there was just infanticide from Herod, and God comes into that. So
Hmm.
um, I'm so thankful. I'm excited for people to watch. Thank you for listening to this conversation. We're going to play this short meditative film right after this. But again, Daniel, thank you so much for
Hmm.
investing this time, um, making this really special kind of perspective of Advent for our JBC community and beyond. Um, and I want people to know too, is that Daniel and I have also been talking. I think this project is a lot bigger than just this one-time thing. So we're thinking of revisiting it, maybe doing a screening in the future or something else. So stay tuned. But thank you for being with us, and
Yeah.
be blessed in these holidays. And thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity too. And yeah, the space to get to create.
Okay, well, great. All right. Well, without further ado, let's listen, well, let's watch this film. And for those listening on the podcast, we encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and watch the Paradox short film. All right, take care, everyone.